Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico Show. Special shout out to iHeart, iTunes, Spotify, and Simplecast, our distributor, for helping make this possible, as well as YouTube. And our guest today is just so decorated in the entertainment industry on the cinematography side of things, as well as visual art. He's photographed iconic high-end music videos for artists such as Britney Spears, Mariah Carey, Lionel Richie, Nelly, and Eminem, just to name a few. His work on Moby's We Are All Made of Stars won an MTV MVA Moon Man for Best Cinematography. His commercials include NASCAR Super Bowl spot, a high-profile national and international campaigns as well. His feature film, Cook County, has won Best Feature at the Hollywood Film Festival and the Audience Award at South by Southwest. Number one Netflix original film he's worked on, A California Christmas, and the forthcoming sequel. Be on the lookout for that one, A California Christmas City Lights. He's a member of the Television Academy, Canadian Society of Cinematographers, Visual Effects Society, and the Society of Composers and Lyricists. Please welcome to the show our new good friend, Mr. Brad Rushing.
Now you're now my new good friend with an introduction like that. Wow, money can't buy. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks so much for taking time in your schedule to be a part of this show. I discovered you through YouTube about a month or two ago. I sent your publicist an email, and you guys actually bid on. Here we are. It's great. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Well, pleasure to be speaking with you.
So I'd love to dive into. I was doing some research, and it sounds like you started more on the visual arts side of things, Performing Arts High School in Houston, Texas, and would love to dive into kind of the beginning stages, how you got into drawing, and then from there, more visual arts.
It was just when I was a little kid. Little kids, I guess, gravitate towards whatever the hell interests them, and to me, it was making pictures, and I think I was related to telling stories because a lot of my early pictures were, stuff from Star Trek. Like I drew my favorite characters, Spock and Kirk, and I think I would put them in little story tableaus. They weren't sophisticated. I was a little kid, but it would be more than one picture, so there would be a little bit of an evolution. And I've just always been captivated by being creative. And I think that it allows you to appreciate and understand and analyze and relate to the world, and also express yourself in a way that, at least for me, is not always possible with words.
Right.
And I think it's a more of a visceral and primal type of communication because, visual art is independent of vocabulary. That's why, silent movies or just artwork or photographs, you don't need a language to understand the beauty or the pain or the light or the dark. And they even transcend eras, where we can look at images even as old as Neolithic cave illustrations. And so it's that timelessness. It's the fact that you are tapping into your humanity on such a fundamental level that it transcends verbal language. And I think that initially is the appeal for me. And not that I ever intellectualized it. I mean, I'm reflecting back on it, but It's just there's a purity to experiencing the world in that way and to expressing that in your work.
Now, you also had a background in music at one point. Would love to kind of dive in just for a minute or two on that and how that started for you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I've had conversations with friends who sort of compartmentalize those things. And to me, they really exist on a spectrum, much like, in terms of the electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet. We think of them as very different things, but really they all exist on the same spectrum. And the same thing with creativity. For me, fundamentally, they come from a different place. And whether I pick up a camera or a paintbrush or a musical instrument, it's just that's how I'm articulating that. And sometimes, I think an expression is more suited to an image, or it's more suited to an abstraction or a motion image or a musical thing. And I love exploring them. I mean, a lot of times people like to ask me questions like, who's your favorite cinematographer? Who's your favorite director? And, I have people, but I think that more significantly, my influences were reading, or my parents who grew up in the age of radio, they imparted that love of radio dramas to me. And the nice thing about those elements is they're dependent on your imagination for the pictures. You create who those characters look like and what those worlds look like. And really, I think that is the best practice for a visual artist, not watching movies. I mean, there's a value to that, yes, but I think you arrive at your voice in those moments where you are uniquely the creator of those elements. And so, again, the music is part of that, where there's an emotion or there's a manifestation, and it's an audio one. And I was just fascinated. I mean, I loved listening to music in the same way I loved movies, and I'm thinking, how does that work? I want to understand, how do they make that sound? And where my love of music manifested was in writing and recording. I have friends who love performing, and we kind of compare notes, because to me, performing is a little bit of a terrifying prospect. I more like to just sort of work almost as an artist, where I'm putting the pieces together and tweaking this and tweaking that and auditioning it and putting the whole together. And I spent a lot of time in high school and college in different types of ways, where I would play with bands, or I would write my own stuff, and I would try experimental things, and I would try this style and that style. And I had a lot of fun with it. And it's something that I kind of sidelined for my film career, always intending to pick up again. And the interesting thing was, the pandemic was kind of an inflection point for a lot of people. We all suddenly found ourselves with time on our hands. What are you going to do? And one of the things I did was go back and digitize a lot of these tapes. And I thought, oh my gosh, I want to complete these. I'm not a person to leave something undone. And so it kind of bothered me. And also with the technology available today, the ability to access collaborators via platforms like Fiverr and Air Gigs, the fact that geography is not an impediment, that I can have somebody in the UK or Israel or Texas or New York contribute, it was just significant. And so it made it possible in a way that it never had been before. And so it's something that I've really brought back into my life. And I'm very grateful to have that again. I feel more complete having all those modes of expression. And interestingly enough, I think one of the projects I'd like to get into this year is, I have a still photography project that involves a process called solarization, and I want to do it digitally. And so that's another thing where I kind of want to work just along that spectrum. I don't see these as separate things. I see them as all part of that same quality, that same enterprise that the cinematography comes from.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, because people ask me all the time, how did you get into acting? How did you get into music? Blah, blah, blah. Like, what are the differences between the two? And I've always answered anybody, if it's in an interview or just talking with somebody after a show, it's like, I don't really see that much of a difference. You're telling a story, there's emotions involved, and I love the way that you've depicted. I've never thought of it as a spectrum, but I really love that depiction, because I'm actually going to kind of use that now. People ask me that question.
I invite you to.
That's a great way of depicting it.
Well, one thing that's marvelous about the project I've been working on lately is I've got a lot of people involved, and the joy to me is in the collaboration.
Yeah.
I do love working as a solitary artist, but I also love collaboration, which is necessary for the kind of movies that I do. And so I've had the joy of inviting friends from that high school for the performing and visual arts to contribute. People who've been friends all my life to contribute. Some of my movie friends, director Sean Piccinino, who I've done a lot of projects with. We did both the California Christmases. He plays guitar, he plays ukulele, he sings on some of these songs. You know, I've got some people who are kind of my idols who, you know, fascinatingly, I was able to reach out to them through their social media. And I was a bit stunned, not only that they responded, but that they were agreeable to. So it's just been a very joyful experience. And kind of like what you're saying, that you do the acting and the music. I find a lot of creative people are double and triple dipping where they, you know, or maybe they're writing. It's totally not uncommon for an actor to also write, or a director to write, and it's just so easy. And I think it just depends on what calls to your heart, and people should do whatever moves them. But I feel that if you already kind of, that's why I say it's a spectrum. If you already have access to that well, to learn the skills and redirect it in another medium, it's just a matter of learning the principles and practicing the principles of that medium.
So transitioning then into cinematography, and if I read correctly, there was film school at some point. I'm not sure if you finished, right? Because you did make a transition from Texas to California.
Right.
How did that happen intrinsically? What was going on? You just kind of like, you know, this is really what I feel. I just feel this gut reaction with film, and I want to follow this and just kind of see where it goes. How did that happen for you?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny. You know, there's people I meet, especially young filmmakers, who say, "Well, I don't know what I want to do." And the funny thing is, I've always, ever since I was a little kid, I've known what I wanted to do. Now, what I wanted to do changed. The first thing I wanted to do was be a garbage man, because, you know, I would look out the window and I would see those guys throwing that crap in those trucks and mashing the hell out of it. And I'm like, that looks fucking awesome. You know, that was great. And then I wanted to be an astronaut, because I grew up during the age of Apollo and Star Trek and you know, Star Wars. And I'm like, let's go into space. And then I was like, oh, you have to have all this discipline and work hard and
not puke your brains out, right?
Yeah, and I was like, well, I don't know about that. But again, it's always been a handoff. And you know, then when I was first getting into college, I thought I would be a graphic artist, and I tried that, and I was like, no, maybe not. And I was fascinated by the moving image, and I was fascinated by music. And there was a point when I was kind of transitioning. I guess I was still in college, and I said, you know, I'll go with whatever pays first, because I love all of it. Right. I could be a working artist, I could be a working musician, I could be a working filmmaker, and whatever somebody wants to pay me for, I will do that. And then the other stuff I'll still do, and I'll do that as my hobbies. And as it turned out, it was motion images. I did not complete college, because I got this job offer, and I thought, oh, well, you could either go and somebody can pay you to do this, or you could pay to keep learning. And I'm thinking, I think I'll go with the job. And you know, it was the right decision for me. And that's kind of what was the catalyst. And I've always followed my heart. I was talking to a friend about that just today. There's this kind of, you know, maybe you can't even, if somebody asks you, can you explain why you made the decision? And maybe you can't put it in the words, maybe you can't articulate it, but I think it's important to have that connection and trust with your intuition, such that you will just literally throw your hat over the wall, and it's like, oh, it's gone now. Now I have to go get it. I'm committed. You know, I've done it. And you know, because words are powerful. If you are somebody with integrity and you mean what you say and you say what you mean, if you say, I'm going to go to California or wherever, if I'm going to be a filmmaker, if I'm going to be a musician, if I'm going to be an actor, and if you're that kind of person that people believe you and hold you accountable, and you hold yourself accountable, then, you know, chances are that's the road you're going to embark upon. And so you know, there's power in words. If you believe there's power in words, there's power in words.
That's a huge point that you made, and I concur. I have like I said, a bunch of bullet points on here. One of them that I think would be great to bring up next is intuition, based on what we've just been vibing on. And would love to hear your thoughts on that, following that internal compass. Even through the challenging times, because we've all been through them, and we'll all continue to go through them as artists and creative beings. And just, how does that mechanism work for you internally?
Well, I think with intuition is being in touch with your heart, is listening to what your heart says, and don't overanalyze it, and don't question it, and don't let other people deflect. Like it's fine if, especially if you have people you trust, to hear what they have to say and to consider it. But other people shouldn't be making your decisions for you.
Right.
And sometimes you can over intellectualize. You could say, I really want this, but there's that, and there's this, and there's that. And look, some of the greatest things in life happen from making these crazy, unlikely, risky decisions. I think any entrepreneur, any successful person will tell you that risk is a fundamental qualification for success. There's this great quote by David Bowie, and if you search on YouTube, David Bowie advice to artists, you'll find it. And one of the things that he says, it's only about 2 or 3 minutes, but one of the things he says is, he says, if you're working at a level where you feel comfortable, you're in the wrong place.
Right.
You need to go a little bit deeper into the water. And when you get to the point where your feet aren't quite touching the bottom, that's where you're in the place to do something special. And the first few times you do that, it's anxious. It's just like the first few times you ride the roller coaster. It's scary as hell, but once you've ridden it and you have that confidence, it's like, oh, I made it through, and now let's go ride the scarier roller coaster. And that's how you build confidence. Confidence, you can't order that from Amazon. You have to, but you have to go through the fire. You have to, take on the scary ass shit. You have to slay the monster, and then you're like, oh, I can do it. So I'm well aware now that if I have to put myself into the position where I know I'm at risk to fail, I know I'm at risk to embarrass myself, I know I'm a little bit beyond my confidence zone, and that's where I go, and that's where I go for growth. And people are like, well, that's super scary. How do you deal with that? Well, part of it is you get insurance. And what does that insurance look like? It's having experienced collaborators, it's having solid collaborators, because I don't consider myself an island. Right. I was getting advice from a mentor once, cinematographer Stephen Poster, really respected a fellow. And it was the first time I ever did a really, really, really big lighting setup. And it was for a Mariah Carey video. And, I had come from independent features, and, we had done some cool stuff. But in this particular instance, we had a couple of blocks of downtown Los Angeles that I had to light up. And then there was a car that was going to come down the street and blow up. And I had never lit anything on that scale. And I said, Stephen, do you have some advice? And he said, well, I have two pieces of advice. One is the principles are the same. It doesn't matter if it's this or if it's this. A backlight is a backlight, and a key light is a key light. So all of those principles apply. He said the other thing that you need to consider is have a gaffer who has more experience than you. And some people are intimidated. Some people want to be the smartest guy in the room. My philosophy is this: I want to hire a crew that if I just fall over dead on the set, it'll still get done. It'll be great. It'll be on schedule. It'll be on time, and nobody will miss me until after. And they're like, oh, what happened to Brad? I mean, I literally want to make myself superfluous, not in action. I mean, I definitely am present, but the potential is there that I feel like, look, if I needed to rely on these people, which, and I certainly take their advice, I certainly take their consideration, but that's the kind of firepower I want behind me. And I feel if you have that, then you can go out on a limb, because, I've got my safety nets, I've got my insurance, I've got the people that if I'm in this position, I'm like, oh my God, what instrument should I use? I don't know if it's going to be bright enough. I got a guy who's going to be like, yeah, I've done this 30 times, use a 20K. Right. So that's, that's how I relate to that. But you have to, even if you hedge your bets, you still have to go to the scary place. If you want growth, if you want confidence, that's how you earn it, by putting yourself in a position of unfamiliarity and taking on the challenge of doing something you have never done before. One of my favorite sayings is, if you want something you've never had before, you have to do something you've never done before.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I think the fact that the confidence comes from knowing that you achieved whatever it was that you were set to achieve. So then it turns into self-trust, perhaps. Okay, I've done this before, or I haven't done this quite before, but I've done X and Y before. I can do Z. We'll figure it out.
One of the perspectives that you gain through experience, because I think a lot of folks starting out, they think, I want people to give me good reviews and pat me on the back and say nice things, and I want to win awards. And when those things have happened, when people have said nice things and patted you on the back, maybe given you more jobs and you've won the awards, you suddenly realize all of those things are superfluous, in the sense that they don't give you, having an award does not give you confidence. A good review does not give you confidence. What gives you, because you can have those things and still be insecure and think your work is shit. And I think a lot of artists do. And it's a double-edged sword, because look, part of a sense of inadequacy is that I need to be better. And that's important. It's important to always feel that there's room for improvement. That's not to say that you should always feel inadequate, but what I'm saying is that the battle is not won with the awards or the accolades. The battle is won in your heart, in that confidence that I have done this. I achieved what I set out to achieve. I did as well or better. Maybe I surprised myself. I took on the scary thing and I walked through it. That it's between you, yourself, and no one else. And that is the confidence, and that is the affirmation that people assume will come from an award or an accolade. And again, it's like, it's not until you have those things that you realize that, sure, from a certain point of view, they're nice, but they don't do the thing you want them to do. It's taking the risks and proving to yourself that you can rise to the challenge, and demonstrating to yourself that you can be better, and surprising yourself. We're like, oh my God, I did that. I've shot things before, and I look at them, and after a while, I almost can't relate to it anymore, because I'm like, who did that? I'm not that good.
Well, you said challenge. Let me ask you this real quick. What do you think has been your biggest challenge? And you can elaborate as detailed or as non-detailed as you like. I was just curious to see over the years if there's one thing that always has been kind of one of those key motivators for you, or if it's, it phases out every couple of years, maybe something earlier on.
It's a couple of things. One is owning those accolades, owning those accomplishments, because so many times people have said, when people compliment you, you need to believe it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people compliment me and I'm like, who the hell are you talking about? I'm very hard on myself. I hold myself.
I can relate.
And so look, it's a double-edged sword. I think you need a bit of that, because if you become full of yourself, well, first of all, I think you're going to be insufferable. But if you think I'm there and I'm the shit, where do you go? How do you get better if you've got it all? So I think you do need that element of at least a sense of you can use improvement. But by the same token, you don't want to just dwell in there. And I'm very guilty of that. I'm very guilty of being so hard on myself and not taking the moment and appreciating, oh, I accomplished a thing and I did good. And that's something that I could still work on. And then the other thing, and I've spoken about it at length, is that I don't think fundamentally or innately that I am a gregarious person. It's something I have to work at. And I feel like I'm one of those people who is just ruthlessly honest. And I feel that sometimes that there's comfortable honesty and there's uncomfortable honesty. And even if they're well-intentioned, it's not like just saying, your dog is ugly and you smell. It's not like a mean-spirited honesty, but it's just, because I always want to be truthful with people. I feel like I owe them that. And, but you just have to evaluate, what purpose is this going to serve? And I can't always just follow my heart so that's it. I guess even in explaining it, I'm having trouble. It's because it's like sometimes I had a friend once who presented a project to me, and this friend was going to invest a lot of time and money, and I considered it, and I considered his strategy, and I said, I have to be honest that I don't think this is going to do what you want it to do. And he was so hurt and offended, and he's never talked to me again.
Wow.
And I guess that's his prerogative, but if I had a friend, I would rather them tell me that. And look, my feeling is, you know what? I would love to be wrong about this. I'm very happy. I'm not a person who has to be right. I'm totally willing to own that. And I would love to be wrong and for you to show me that I am. But I owe you my honest perspective in this moment. I have to tell you the way it looks to me. So, some people are cool with that. Some people embrace it. I mean, I had a friend recently about a project I was developing. It was very candid and said some things that they weren't hurtful, but they were surprising, and they kind of caught me off guard because everybody else was praising this thing, and he was like, here's a bunch of flaws. And after thinking about it, they were well considered. And it's not that I would completely change the direction, but it made me think, it made me realize that the way that this thing was being told was the frame around the important central point. And so I had been, it was a historical story that I'm developing with a friend, and we were very rigorous about accuracy to the historical context. But that historical context detracted from the central story because, I mean, it's true, but it's contentious, it's uncomfortable, and you don't want to walk the line of sugarcoating something. But if it's stealing energy from the central idea and the central character, you have to think about that. And so, he was candid, and I'm glad he was, instead of saying, "Oh, this is awesome and you're great." There's no value in that. I don't think I have an ego in the sense that I don't need that. I really don't need people, because like I told you, that's superfluous. Even if you tell me nice things, I don't necessarily believe them. They have to arise in me for it to be something that actually satisfies whatever it would be that is ego. So whether you say nice things or not nice things, as long as there's, good intention, intelligence, and integrity behind them, they're going to be valuable to me.
Yeah, it has to resonate.
Yeah.
It has to resonate.
Well, but even if it doesn't resonate, if it's coming from a place of integrity, honesty, and intelligence, it's valuable.
Right.
Because sometimes if you don't agree with a thing, it's important to have that as a marker. If it comes from somebody you respect, because if you respect people, you don't have to agree.
Right.
It's still valuable because it gives you, it's almost like points in space, where you could be like, it helps you triangulate where
I was going to say,
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, again, to me, that's all good. But like I said, what I would struggle with is just communicating with people who need kid gloves, or, people who play mind games and, subtext. I'm one of those say what I mean and mean what I say people, and people who say things that need interpretation. Sometimes that gets lost on me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Something that I thought was really interesting, I was reading in an article regarding A California Christmas. And by the way, congrats on all that success. It's really
thank you.
Quite an
We're so
accomplishment.
thrilled to bring you guys the second one. I mean, we are so in love with these characters and with the new characters you're going to get to meet. And we're already dreaming ahead. I mean, we kind of joke that we should have a California Christmas universe. I know there's people who like some of the supporting characters like Manny and Leo. And we're always saying, oh, we need, a California Christmas adventure. Manny and Leo take Australia, send them down to, stuff like that would be so fun. And we already have ideas for 3 and 4. And we're just having fun with it. When we made it, we didn't have any sense that it was going to blow up. We just made a movie that we loved and we thought was great. And I can't speak for anybody else, but my expectation was it was just going to be one of the hundreds. And, I'd be glad if a few people watched it. And I'm still, I have some, explanations from people, but I really don't know what caused us to break from the pack. I'm grateful that we did. It was always on my bucket list to do a Christmas movie. And I'm so happy that I did that Christmas movie. It means a lot.
Well, one of the things that I read in an interview was your take on empathy
Yeah.
from behind the lens. I haven't really heard that before, and I'd love to just kind of dive into that for a second, because that's a really interesting perspective, and kind of the mechanism behind that for you.
Well, I've always known that I was an empath. Maybe I didn't have the vocabulary to put a name to it,
Right.
but I've always been one of those people that I pick up on other people's emotions, even from a photograph. Like sometimes these disturbing photographs, I try not to look at them because they will stay with me in terrible ways.
Yeah.
And just other people, like I always want people who are around me and people I care about. I always am thinking, how can I help them? How can I contribute and make their life better? Just compliment them, or buy them lunch, or give them, introduce them to somebody. I'm very cognizant of that kind of thing, and to me it's really almost a golden rule kind of thing, because who would I like others to be to me in my life, and that's who I want to be to them. And so that's, yeah. I only recently learned there's this thing called the Myers-Briggs personality type, and I learned that I'm what's called an INFJ.
Me too.
So I go online and I'm reading about what those people do and what their motivations are, and I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was just crazy and stupid and insane because I have these motivations and these values that a lot of people don't understand. But it predicts all of it. And I was stunned, and I'm still kind of coming to terms with that realization. But it informs my work, because as I'm standing there on set, I don't consciously think this, but intellectually I realize I'm the audience's proxy. I'm the camera. I'm the person, in collaboration with the director and other creatives, who chooses, where do I put that camera? What lens do I put on it? How does it move? What's the light? What's in shadow? What do I show? What don't I show? As a fine art major, I understand negative space, the part that you don't use, the part that you don't show. One of my favorite films is Alien. And like, you almost never, only briefly do you see that full creature. And right. so much a part of visual storytelling is leaving those blanks for the audience to personalize things.
Scares the shit out of you too.
That's why and it's so funny, ironically, like a lot of the low budget movies where they have the cheap shit creatures, they're like, oh, we paid a lot, let's show the whole thing. It's like you're showing that it looks like shit. If you showed just a little bit, you might get away with murder. And so it's the weirdest thing. And then here's Ridley Scott with this gazillion-dollar Giger alien, and he's just showing little bits and pieces. And you're right, it's because what those people fill in the blanks is what scares them the most.
Yeah.
So I understand that. And I think that the scene you're talking about was in the first California Christmas, where Amanda Detmer and Lawrence Swickert are in that truck right after Amanda's character gets chemo, and Callie, Lauren's character, is kind of breaks down and gets really emotional. And just sitting there, they were so real. And even after all these years of doing make-believe for a living, my emotions tuned in to the authenticity of their performances. And I literally just wanted to push the camera away and give them a hug. I was feeling this, and when that happens, I know it's magic. I know that if they're winning me, or if I'm tearing up, because again, I have an awareness that I am the audience's proxy, and I want to be close. And that's part of being uncomfortable. It's like, if I pull back to an uncomfortable place, to a comfortable place, that's where the audience is going to be. If I put myself so close that I'm feeling that and I want to hug them, my assumption is that the audience will feel that as well. And so I think that that's effective approach to cinematography. I think, again, a lot of people, when they talk to you, they want the answers, they want the roadmap, they want the blueprint. Like give me a diagram of how you did this shit and why you did it. And the answer is really more that I was sitting there and what felt right. And I wish I could articulate that, but it's something you get from experience. It's something you get, and also just from being in life. You don't have to be behind a camera, but as you're sitting there and you're experiencing an emotional conversation with somebody, why is it emotional? Probably because you're looking in their eyes and you're seeing things in their eyes. So you want, like I recently saw something where the people shot an emotional scene all in profile. And I'm just like, I hate this because I want to come around and see, I want to feel that as humans. And you, again, you could understand from an intellectual point of view, like you could study psychology and you could study anthropology, but as humans, we experientially live that. So if you think about it and you analyze, as a cinematographer, often you're in a situation, you're like, the light is so beautiful. Well, ask yourself why. What angle is it coming from? Is it being reflected? Is it hard? Is it soft? And I think for all filmmakers and all storytellers and all artists, is to just have awareness in those moments that you're feeling things. What are the catalysts? What is the lighting in the room? What does this person's face look like? Just have an awareness of how you're sensing and experiencing things. If you can, step outside of yourself and take a logistical snapshot and take an assessment. And I think it's valuable. And you don't even have to do it consciously. I don't know that I always do it consciously or maybe even ever do it consciously, but I do know that's part of the process, and that's part of empathy, is just having that radio frequency. And sometimes it's too much. I mean, sometimes you're in a situation and somebody's hurting and you want to help, but you're taking it on so much that you have to step back. And it's not because you don't care or you're an asshole, but if you get dragged into it, it's going to tear you apart and you're going to be useless to them and useless to you.
I can so relate, and congrats on finding your Myers-Briggs journey, because
it was a surprise. I had no idea.
I had a civics or history teacher. I don't know why it was the civics or history teacher in high school that got us turned on to Myers-Briggs. I have no idea, but it happened. And we took the test. And in high school, I was an ENFJ. And then I went through some pretty major health things at 17, 18, some illness stuff. And through that process became a little bit more introverted, and I stayed as an INFJ since right after high school.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been about 7-8 years now, and I'll take the test once a year, once every 2 years. Yeah. It's the same thing. So I think it's pretty much locked and loaded. Yeah, it's there's a real sense of, and I think you can definitely relate to this. There's a loneliness that comes with it, but yes, it's not lonely. It's this. There's only so many people in the world with that type of personality, and then when you meet them, there's this gelling. Like as soon as we got on, I had no idea that you were that type, but I was like, man, there's a vibe here. There's a gelling, and.
I think I read that it's 1.6 to 2%. But yeah, I mean, look, until you have an awareness of that, I really, honestly, up until this year, I thought that parts of me were just broken and parts of me were just like, I felt that somehow I got put on the wrong planet. And I'm thinking, why do other people not see things and understand things? And why don't they care? And why is there not that level of unconditionality and just hyper awareness of other people's pain and need and that unconditional love? And because I really had kind of reconciled that nobody will ever care about me the way I care about other people, even strangers. And to me, it's all very real, but I just thought I was out of my mind. I thought something was broken in me, and it wasn't. And that's what, when you say lonely, I'm just like, I'm this fucking alien that fell out of the sky, and I do my best, but people don't understand me and people think I'm crazy. And when I read that, I was like, oh my God, my people are here. They're hiding, but it's like I'm not alone. The fact that it could predict my motivations, that it could predict my decisions, and I mean, it's just this very analytical, and I'm just like, yes, 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 yes. Oh my God, yes, yes, yes. And I don't know that it helps me relate but it's okay. It's nice knowing you're not alone. It's funny because, I listen to stories about people who have maybe gender dysphoria or they have a sexual preference that maybe in the context of their culture or their society they're uncomfortable with, and they struggle and they feel like that kind of square peg in a round hole. And because I've never had one of those aspects in my life, I certainly have always been respectful. I realize that people's experiences are valid, whether I understand them or not, but I couldn't relate. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't know what that feels like. Or even like, an addict. I intellectually understand the idea, but I don't have that. But going through this, where suddenly I'm like, I have this revelation, wow, there's other people like me, and I'm not just this broken lunatic. I think it gave me an affinity for those types of experiences.
Yeah.
That liberation that people say when they're like, I claimed my identity, I became the gender that I feel like, or I love the person that I want to love. And there's that liberating quality. And I think I finally understood that when I read about INFJs, and I read that, wow, that Myers-Briggs predicts that I would exist, and I'm not an anomaly, and I am not alone.
And you find out that as you continue down this journey, at least for me, you find that those really soft spots at your core, those are the strengths that people want from you.
Yeah.
That's been one thing for me over the years, especially in the last couple of years, that I've tried to display and try to expose would probably be a better word, be vulnerable with. And it's interesting, but I really, again, it's rare when you find an INFJ in this world. So it's cool to have you.
A saying that I've kind of attributed to it lately is that my superpower is my kryptonite, because it really does give you this super sensitivity, this innate awareness, and that gives you abilities to anticipate what people need and just be there for them in ways that maybe they don't even know how to ask. But at the same time, there's a vulnerability where, like I said, you could just be destroyed by somebody else's pain, or even just a random photograph or story can wreck you in a way that most people could stand apart from it and say, yes, it's sad, but what's for dinner? And to me, it's going to haunt me. So
right, for sure. There's so many places we could go with this. I'd love to. This has been great. I'd love to touch on just working with some of the big names. Like, I mean, the Jack Black TBS bit. I'm sure that was a riot working with him.
Yeah. He was fantastic. It's funny. Sometimes you work with people, and I mean, look, everybody. People who are celebrities, I think everybody is sort of rightfully dazzled by, and everybody has their own celebrities. And a lot of the celebrities I work with may not necessarily be my celebrities. Like, I would love to work with a Paul McCartney or an Amy Mann. I mean, what a thrill that would be. And I have, like, Lionel Richie. I just love, he's such a humble, sweet, considerate man. Elliot Gould, same, just lovely people. But the thing that you realize typically is when you're on a set, people think, oh, wow, you're pals and you got their phone number and you went out to dinner with them. And it's like, well, I wish, but you're working. Somebody was asking me just the other day about Britney Spears, like, what was she like? And she was doing her job and I was doing my job. And I'm sure we said some things, and she was professional and she was sweet. But she was focused on being awesome. She just focused on rocking it. And so was I. I mean, that's what we were paid to do. That's what we were there for, because as sexy as filmmaking is, ultimately it's a job. Absolutely. And you are as intentional and on point as you would be with any other job. And, even if she's sweet and considerate and even if she would say, hey, Brad, I would sit down and have a beer with you. People like that have a lot of demand. I mean, they whisk her from that shoot and she's doing publicity and talking to the label. And so, with somebody like Jack Black, I mean, he was chill. He was funny as hell when the camera wasn't running. He was super nice. Sure, I would absolutely like to be his friend and chill with him. But, sometimes that happens, especially on movies when you spend a lot of time together. But on something like that, which is a commercial and you're kind of in and out,
yeah,
usually not so much. But I really don't have a lot of stories of people being assholes. And I was actually talking to somebody just the other day who was saying, oh, well, I heard this person was an asshole. And I'm like, look, we all have our bad days. And the problem with a celebrity or a person in the public eye is if you catch them on a bad day and that press just gets spread and then suddenly they are definitively an asshole. I mean, let he who is without sin cast that first stone. I mean, who of us have not had those moments that if they had been unfortunately publicized, we would look like a shit.
Yeah.
So I give them a lot of credit. And I really haven't, and some of the people I have worked with who I thought were maybe a handful, I think they have complications. It's like what's behind this? I don't know that any person is fundamentally like evil or an asshole. I think there's something underneath it. I want to believe that. I want to believe that it's not possible for somebody to come out a baby and genetically be a piece of crap. And so when I meet people, like, I think there's complications. Sometimes I see the people who are around them, who are enablers or who are parasites. And I'm like, this is the dynamic. This is, you don't have, you have your entourage is a bunch of sycophants and parasites, and they're not your people who really care about you and will check you and say, hey, focus, or don't do those things because it's not in your best interest. Because again, this comes to that comfortable and uncomfortable honesty. If you're really my friend and I'm being an idiot and I'm sabotaging myself, then you're going to call me on it. And I think people who surround them with yes men and people who are just nothing but affirmation, you run that risk of people who really don't care about you. Because if all they're doing is stroking your ego, well, what's in it for them? I think they're getting something, and they're just, again, it becomes a parasitic relationship. A person who will tell you the uncomfortable truth, they're risking you being mad at them. They're risking you. They're taking on a risk because your best interest is more important than their comfort. So anyway, I guess it's a complicated answer, but people are really nice and people are interesting. Even the challenging people are interesting. Everybody's I've worked with, it's just been a privilege.
Well, the Britney video, when I found out that you were involved with Toxic, and it's like, it's so classic.
Yeah.
And I mean, the lighting and the shots and the close-ups. So I'm sure everybody asks you questions about that video. I'm not really going to dive deep into it just not to be redundant, but what great work.
Well, thank you. I mean, look, I need to acknowledge the fact that was Britney's idea. That video was her idea. A lot of the really daring things that she did, like the rhinestones, that was her idea.
Yeah.
Joseph Kahn, I mean, so much of that is Joseph's imprint. Even though I was doing the lighting, it was within his vocabulary of style. And and plus, to be honest, Joseph, he started out as one of my mentees, but then he turned around and took me into music videos, and he showed me the ropes of high-end music videos, and he kind of brought me into that. And so I owe him a lot, and that video owes Joseph a lot, and I'm honored to have contributed and to have been a part of it. And I think that my work plays a role in it being what it is. But as with all of these things, they're a team effort. Even, the gaffer, the makeup person, the wardrobe person, the craft services, the security people, you take any one of those people away and it wouldn't be what it is. And, but again, especially in terms of, if you're talking about the imagery, it's, so much of that is Britney and so much of that is Joseph. And it's an honor to be a collaborator with people of that caliber, with that kind of vision and that passion.
Let me ask you real quick, with music videos, obviously with the music background, when it comes to treatments and shot lists and concepts, how involved are you usually with those higher end budgets? I would think you would be I would want the, cinematographer, director of photography to be involved, because so much is going to be happening through your internal lens and capturing things. So I'd love to hear how that process works, because overlapping story plots, different things happening, and then how that's going to be the final product in post. How do you go about that? How does that work?
Well, it's so funny. I think people, I guess because it's easy to compartmentalize it, they want the formula. They want, tell me the process. And there is no universal process. It's
Right.
one of the beautiful things about working freelance is if you're on a job and you hate your job, well, wait till the job's over, because then you're going to be on another job with different people doing something totally different. And that's not to say I ever hate it. I don't ever hate it. I mean, maybe sometimes it's more challenging than others. But the point that I'm making is that it's different with different directors, different producers, even with the same directors and producers from story to story. Like I did a couple of films once. So Cook County is a very dark, grainy, gritty story about this family torn apart by methamphetamine in the outback of Texas. And it was preceded by a very lightweight romantic comedy that I shot in Houston. I shot both of those in Houston. And I remember when I was setting up the first shot on Cook County, the gaffer sets up this beautiful soft lighting. And I'm like, no, that's not right. He says, this is how you like to light. I'm like, yeah, on the romantic comedy. It's like, this is a dark, gritty, basically ugly and rude, and we're going in a different direction.
Right.
So, that was his experience with me, where now I'm working in a different way. And I think with directors, producers, talent from project to project, it can change. And that's also part of the joy. I'm not always doing the same thing, and I'm not always doing it in the same way. I mean, one of the ways it can be frustrating, and I've seen this happen to directors too, is somebody hires you based on your reel or your expertise, and then kind of disregards you. They're like, oh, I love Brittany's video. I want you to do it for $10,000. I'm like, well, that cost a shitload of money. It's like all the stuff we did. It didn't emanate from my cells. It's like we had the resources. We had that level of talent. Even if I bring the light and you have, the $25 makeup artist, it ain't going to look like that.
Right.
Because it's not just me. So it's just, that dynamic is challenging. It's challenging. I've seen directors who people hire them because of their names and who they are, and then they tell them what to do. It's like, really, would you go to your doctor and your lawyer and pay them and then say, I understand that, but here's what we're going to do. Why? Just don't even bother. Save your money. But there are people who operate that way. It's a weird situation. I have to say, I don't really get it. That doesn't hit me a lot. I'm very grateful. Creatively, I do seem to be very in tune with people. It's very seldom that I get big notes. It's generally little notes.
Right.
And also, I think that's because I really pay attention during pre-production. It's not that I'm just a genius, and I'm not even saying I am a genius, but the point I'm making is that I pay attention. I do my homework. I try to tune into them so I understand them. And like with Sean and I have worked together so many times. And I say to him, Sean, the less words you and I say to on each other on set, the more I have done my work. Because if we're not talking, if he's not saying, Brad, like this and frame that, then he's talking to the actors. He's talking to the wardrobe. He's talking to the makeup. He's talking to the producers. He's doing the shit he needs to be doing. He and I need to get on the same page. And it's my responsibility to get on that page before we get on set so that our conversation is minimal. And in that regard, if I understand the aesthetic, if I understand the point, with any director, even if it's a new director, if I take the time to get on the page with them such that we're on set, the less we say to each other, the better. And I feel that way about my collaborators. Like when I'm with a colorist, I used to have people say, why do you want the expensive colorist? Let's get the cheap colorist. And you get in with the cheap colorist, who not necessarily is, but probably more likely is less experienced. You're saying a lot of stuff. Do this, do this, do this, do this. You get with those super expensive guys and you just don't say anything, and they blast through it so fast that literally it's like they may be charging more per hour, but if they can finish it in an hour and the guy charging half takes 3 hours, the guy charging half suddenly costs 50% more.
Right.
And you had to work twice as hard. So to me, the less I say, if I'm sitting there and that colorist is just rocking it, and I'm just sitting there, drinking tea and shooting the shit and wondering what's for lunch, then I know I have a really good collaborator. And then what's going to happen is they're either going to take it exactly where I wanted it, or they're going to take it to some even better place. And I'm like, hey, do your thing, my friend.
That's so good.
Yeah.
What a great way to put it. And I'd love to talk also about, in your words, continuity on set, not necessarily technically, but the vibe. How over the years of your experience, what are kind of like the 2 to 3 major bullet points of how to do that? It's not from a formulaic standpoint, but just the trends of, okay, this is really how to do that, because a lot of things can get blown real quickly when you're dealing with actors, you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with crews of 50, 60, even small crews, skeleton crews. What have you seen have been the trends for really, keeping successful continuity from beginning to end?
Yeah. Well, I think if I understand your question right, it's really about the vibe on set with the personalities and keeping the machine oiled and
Sure.
running. Look, bad attitudes are contagious. Negativity is contagious. I want to qualify that by saying safety is always paramount. If you bring up a safety issue, if you say, hey, this is unsafe, we need to stop, we need to address it, that is always, anybody who is worth a shit is going to pay attention and say, that's important, let's talk about it.
Right.
But outside of that, just griping and complaining and being negative, it's like a cancer, and it's a contagious cancer that I've seen it literally, where it's a happy crew and one person is just being bitter and complaining, and then it just goes through the crew. And again, it's not necessarily that they're addressing a grievance. It's not like lunch is late or that's unsafe. It's just, they're just being grumpy and negative. And so I'm very well aware, in terms of when I put a crew together, it's like throwing a party. You throw a party and you're like, who's gonna have fun? Who's gonna, tell the good stories and the funny jokes, and, oh, these two people would get along. And so you're really thinking about the dynamics. And you're also thinking about diversity, and that's not necessarily a new thing. To me, that's always been a thing. It's like, let's mix it up. Let's keep it interesting. I like crews that look and feel like the United Nations, because I don't want a bunch of everybody saying the same thing. I don't want everybody having the same cultural references.
Right.
It's like my friend who looked at that script of mine. Everybody else loved it. And I didn't write the script, by the way. I was developing it with some people, but they looked at it and they're like, hey, here's some things that you didn't think about. I want those people. I want those people who don't think like me. I want those people who come from a different background and have different experiences, because it makes us stronger and more powerful. So, just like a party, you want to throw some diversity in there. You want to have interesting people. You want to have people who are going to get along, because you don't want the person who's going to get drunk and pee in the punch bowl and start a fight, because then it's going to wreck everybody's time and the police are going to come and there's going to be blood on the carpet. So, I'm very well aware of that. And the other thing, which is a little more insidious, but I found out that there's this type of person who will be super nice to me and then secretly be shitty to other people. And you have to watch out for those. And like, I've seen that where people, like, your gaffer is hitting on the PAs and they don't like it. Or I literally had somebody once say your key grip made the production coordinator cry. And I'm like, this person kisses my ass and is super nice to me. And you know what? If my person is making the production coordinator cry and they don't hire me again, it's like, for all of my good work, all of my good intentions, it's like, now I'm not getting hired because I brought somebody on who pooped in the punch bowl. So you just have to be aware. I mean, as a department head, your team represents you. And for sure, integrity is important. You don't want people who are treating people like shit. You don't want somebody who is being inappropriate or mean-spirited. And but at the same time, you have to understand that even if you for some reason don't have a problem with that, it reflects on you. And if you bring the rabble, you're not going to be welcome. So, I'm very aware of that. And I mean, look, I do think people in this business are a bunch of big kids. I think that there's qualities to our behavior I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody of using sailor language. I mean, I always try never to be insulting to people, but you know, I would probably get in trouble in a corporate boardroom for my vocabulary on set. Again, not being demeaning, just being salty and spicy and just being who I am. So I mean, you have to have a line between that. Just make sure that people are respectful. Make sure that people treat each other kindly. Make sure. I mean, I want people who are there for the same reason I am. I mean, we all have to pay our bills. We're all ultimately making a living, but I'm a little bit wary of the people who that's their principal motivator. I really want the people who wake up in the morning and say, you know, hot damn, I got to go make a movie with cool people today.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I'm getting paid. I forgot about that. That's kind of where I want them to come from, because I mean, it's a necessity. Of course it is. We should be paid fairly. We need to be paid. We need to be paid fairly. Otherwise, you know, we're going to have some problems. But I just, again, it kind of makes me sad. And I'm not judging anybody. If that's where they're coming from, that's fine. But I like to be with people who are coming from the same place as I am. I like to know that when I'm on set, we're all here for the same reason. We're all here to do something awesome. We all care. We care about each other. I care as much about the production designer's work or the actor's work, and I want to make space for them. I don't want to be all about me and all about my lighting. I want to get my shit done and have it done quietly and discreetly so they can do their stuff, so they can also look awesome. And if I can help them out, I'm going to help them out. Because in the end, we, you know, all ships rise together, especially in a collaborative enterprise.
And with that said, for you, what makes capturing a performance either, you know, successful or unsuccessful? What again, key trends, anything that you could just kind of throw into the mix there with all that said, because that was fantastic.
I wouldn't use the word trends, because again, I think having empathy is a good thing, because part of it is being a generous and gracious partner, knowing that it's not all about you, that you're not dominating. Sometimes it's a light touch. I could be like, oh, I could do this cool lighting, but maybe that's not what it's about. Right. Like, what is it about? Is it about me? Maybe it's not about me. Maybe this is not my world. Maybe I need to step back and do a very simple thing. It's about working with the right collaborators, the people who are showing up for the right reason, the people who aren't just getting a paycheck and phoning it in. They're going to show up and they're going to have their heart on their sleeve and they're going to leave it all on the floor. And, you know, with whether it's the actors or the hair and makeup or the wardrobe or whatever, that those people are all in. Even, again, like I said, the craft services, you may say, hey, man, those people are just, you know, doing the snacks and the drinks. But, you know, they are, you know, they're the one with the smile, and they're the ones that come around with the tray and make everybody happy, and you're getting tired. And it's like, oh, here come the taquitos. And I mean, it's, you know, it's all about the mood. It's like the party. It's like they're just as important as the guy coming around making sure, hey, man, y'all got something to drink, and if you need anything. And it just keeps people happy and keeps people rolling. And I think that just setting that tone, having that tone, and where people feel empowered. I don't think anybody wants to think that they're just a cog in a machine. It's like, hey, you know, just shut up and do your job. Just set the light, and I don't care what you think. I don't want your opinion. I work with people. I work with people that it's so common it's a cliche, where they say anybody, even if it's a PA, if they have a good idea, I want to hear it. I have worked with those people who have to be the smartest person in the room. And that's not me. And I don't think that that's benefit. I don't even think that helps them, because it basically shuts down.
Right.
Which, you know, here's the thing. You can listen to something. You don't have to do it. Somebody can give you an idea, and you could even be courteous and say, thank you, I appreciate it. You know, I've thought about it. I'm going to go this direction. But I just don't know I mean, if time is tight, that's one thing, but I just don't know the value in ever shutting anybody down. Like, I had a buddy who was a sound man once, and I was lighting a close-up on a scene, and I had a woman in a bed, and I got it really beautiful, and I was kind of focused in a certain way. And my buddy, who's a sound man, comes out, he says, Brad, there's no light in her eyes. There's no catch light. You can't see her eyes. I'm like, oh, I hadn't noticed that. And if I was being weird about it, I'd be like, you know, fuck you. You're the sound guy. Go twist some knobs. But no, I'm chill. I'm like, I'm glad. Thank you for catching that, you know? So I'm always, look, it's, again, it's like I said, all for one and one for all. And you just, and in the best situation, it feels like a family. And it's just like, when you ask me about toxic, I mean, I never want to suggest that it's all me. It's all of us. It's every single one of us adds to that dynamic. And everybody's important. And I think having that spirit, and it diffuses from the heads of the departments. That's why people like the director, the producer, myself, all of us have to have that kind of selflessness, that kind of graciousness, that kind of inclusivity, that set that environment where everybody feels safe. If they have a safety concern, that they can speak up without fear of somebody, saying, hey, you're wasting my time. To have that environment where everybody feels like if they have a good idea, they could come say, hey, Brad, I thought about, what about this thing? And look, sometimes there are egos, so you may not want to yell it across set, but like if I have an idea for the director for a performance, I never in front of the actors say, hey, how about if you have them do this? I'll go over there and I'll whisper it to them confidentially.
Right,
and if they want to take credit for it, I don't care. It's again, it's not about, hey, this is Brad's idea. It's like, no, we're all here to do something cool. And if I can contribute something, and you know what, if I can make the director look good by having an idea, and that's great, because if that director looks good and gets hired again, then they hire me, then rock and roll. That's all I want.
Mission driven.
Yeah.
Mission driven. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, my friend, this is our life. We spend so much time on set. It just can't be about this mercenary sort of thing. It's like if you don't have happiness in that space, if you don't have love and fulfillment in that space, it seems like it would be a drudgery. So I try to put those things there.
Yeah, there's definitely a magical quality of being on set and being in front of camera, behind camera, whatever. There's something about it, whether it's small scale indie or multi-$100 million, I don't know how to explain it, but there's something magical that does occur.
I think it's alignment. I really do. I think it's some kind of alignment. Creative alignment, spiritual alignment, emotional alignment. I think that's, a bunch of people all in the same space. It's just like at a rally, when people are talking about love and equality and things like that. And we all have that same passion and that same positivity. I feel it's that. I feel it's a very fundamental human quality that is not exclusive to film sets, but it's something that in our best moments, we embody that.
For sure. Real quick, I'd love to hear a great set experience, which I'm sure you've had plenty, and then something that just completely went down the rat hole. Just, total antithesis of, amazing. Just like best and worst.
Best. Well, look,
you don't have to name any. You don't have to name any names for the worst. Obviously,
my best experiences are very often about things going wrong. It starts with something going wrong, and then we pivot and we improvise and we overcome, and we're like, oh my God, how did we do that? How do we pull that rabbit out of our hat? And part of it is, I'm going to tell you, one of my secrets is, I always say that Murphy is on the call sheet, whether you put him there or not. What I mean by that is you expect the unexpected. Do not be surprised when shit happens. Shit is going to happen. You may as well just schedule it on call shit.
It's the contingency page.
So as a creative, I'm always anticipating wherever the budget permits, I carry a green and a blue screen, even if I don't need it. And I could tell you stories where those have saved the day. And the director's like, I don't need it. I'm like, I know you don't. It's just sitting there. And then the shit hits the fan. We're at the beach. The fog rolls in. I don't have a background anymore. That's okay. I'll shoot your actors against a green screen. We'll go out and we'll get plates later. In fact, in one instance, I proactively had my second unit guy. I said, you know what? Why not? Just go shoot some plates this morning.
Wow.
I didn't know why. I was just like, just go shoot some plates. Because I did know fog could be a thing. But later on, the fog came in. The director's like, son of a bitch. And I'm like, no worries. I got you plates. Here's a green screen. Let's go. So, but you plan. You know this shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's why you either have that experience or you have those experienced people and you trust them, and your gaffer and your camera operator are saying, hey, this could happen, you should do that. And you're like, oh, good idea, let's do that. But that is how I plan for Murphy, because he is on the call sheet, and when he shows up, I'm going to be ready for him.
I love it. I love it.
But that's part of it. That's part of it. Yeah, and or somebody asking for something impossible. I had a guy once, the script said, you script writers can write whatever you want. It's super easy to say, guy flicks cigarette, camera follows cigarette through the room, lands in beaker. You can see that on the page. Now you tell me, how is my camera going to do that? And so what I ultimately ended up doing is, it was a visual effects shot. We didn't want to do a visual effects shot, but I'm like, I don't know how that's going to happen. So I handheld the camera and I handheld a POV shot. And then we did a tumbling cigarette in front of a green that we weren't supposed to have a green, but I had a green. I put it, the grips put a Makita in it, and they pulled it, and it's like, and we, panned some lights across it, and they composited it, and hey, there's your stupid shot. And it's a cool shot. It's a great shot. So those are my best moments. I love being a magician. I love saving the day. And also, I'll tell you, sometimes not having the thing you want, where it's like, I need a grip. I need a dolly. I need a crane. And they're like, denied. And you're like, what am I going to do? And so sometimes not having the thing, you're like, well, let's come up with something. And you come up with something even better.
Yeah, you got to be resourceful.
But I lean into that. It's like, when that stuff happens, I try not to, dwell on how shitty it is. I try to say, okay, let's embrace this as an aesthetic. Let's call this our aesthetic. Now, how do we rock it? How do we rock it like we mean it? Because if you do it grudgingly, if you're like, I'm going to just half-ass it because you didn't give me any money, well, it's going to be half-assed. But if you're like, okay, let's work inside this box. It's a different box, but let's make it as killer as we can inside this box. So those are my best moments. You're talking about the least good moment. I mean, the least good moment, to be honest with you, is a variation of that story, where, I've been on, it's typically on short films that I do for friends or mentees who, they're a little less experienced, and maybe they don't plan as well as they should. And, or because it's a volunteer situation, we don't have a crew that's totally on top of stuff because they're learning, and we run out of time, and they're like, we've shot 5 pages. We're 3/4 through the day and we have 10 more pages. I'm like, what are you going to do? And so we've literally had to rewrite stuff where we're like, let's go through this and figure out something that will work given the time we have left, because you don't have any more time. So either you got a partial thing that's just, you fucked up and you're done and it's an embarrassment, or we figure it out. And look, that shit is painful. I hurt for them. I hurt for me. I hurt for me as I watched that train barreling into the wall, and there's only so much you can do. You could say stuff, but if you're limited by the experience and the resources, and it's going to be what it's going to be, at a certain point you have to say, let's address the reality of this situation. So that to me is those are catastrophic. But again, I believe in landing on my feet no matter what. I was on a shoot once where things were going sideways, and somebody says, why aren't you nervous? Why aren't you freaking out? And I'm, because it won't help. It won't make anything better. And if I maintain my clarity, we're going to have a solution. I've been doing this for a long time, and it always gets done. It always gets done some version of well. We'll figure it out. I mean, if we have to do pickups, if we figure it out on set, it's like, we're professionals. We considered our collaborators. We brought our best collaborators. We brought our A game, and ultimately we're human. And if that X factor comes in, if Murphy brought reinforcements, we have to be content knowing that we did the best we could. But like I said, ultimately at the end of the day, 999 times out of 1,000, it all works out on set. And that one time that it doesn't, we figure it out in post.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll touch on gear real quick as we kind of, start to taper out here. Favorite cameras, favorite lenses, just kind of roll through the entourage of gear. And
I like to tell people I'm camera agnostic, and I really am. I mean, to me, it's the right camera for the right job.
Right.
And sometimes that's going to be a Red. Sometimes that's going to be an Arri Alexa. Sometimes it's going to be a Sony A7S II. I mean, like two of the projects I've got recently, like California Christmas, we shot with a red Gemini. And I was just so happy. We had done a movie in spring with the Gemini, and it's got a dual native ISO of 800 and 3200. And that 3200, because it's a lower budget film, because you're just trying to put, 50 pounds into a 20-pound bag, it's like, you're shooting as the sun's going down. And at a certain point, you're just going to get shut down. But if you have 3200 ISO, then that's at least 2 more stops than 800 before you're going to start seeing grain. And that'll give you an extra 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
30 minutes, depending on the location and the way the light works with it. Because like one of the things in spring, we were it was an interior, but it had a bunch of big windows. So as that light goes down, my lights inside had to go down. Otherwise it would start looking dark outside.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, we have no light. So, it was just one of those things where I was able to keep shooting a lot longer. And also, a lot of times you light a scene, and because you're using smaller lights, you're trying to balance to existing practicals. Maybe you're lighting at a lower level and you're shooting it at 2, and suddenly the director says, now I want to shoot 60 frames. Fine, kick it to 1600, kick it to 3200. There you go. There's your overcrank. So I love it. And then right before, a couple months ago, I shot a music video for a contestant on The Voice. And, it was one of those things where it was a little bit run and gun. It was a little bit lower budget. And we shot it on my Sony A7S II. And it looks gorgeous. I'm so happy with it. And I think people are going to look at it, and 99 people out of 100 are not going to know that was shot on a Sony. They would think it's shot on an Arri or a Red. And I'm because I'm camera agnostic, I'm sensitive to directors' preferences. I'm sensitive to clients' preferences. I really believe that that any camera in the right hands, if you understand its advantages and limitations, you will make it look good. I would rather have Roger Deakins with an iPhone than somebody with a big ego and little experience behind the most expensive tricked out rig, because I know that experience is going to trump it. The people who know how to do the shit are going to do the awesome shit regardless of the camera. So to me, it's just a tool. I don't have an attachment. I see people who say, oh, we can't shoot because we don't have money for an Alexa. It's like, well, that's the silliest thing I ever heard.
Right.
I've seen stuff shot on the iPhone that looks like a gazillion bucks. And so it's like I said, I'm camera agnostic. And I just believe the right tool for the right job. Same with lights. Sometimes you need the big HMIs. Sometimes it's all about, I do love the RGB LED lights. I came up during a time where you were basically tungsten or HMI. And if you wanted color, you were buying gels. And production would say, well, you can have 3 colors or 5 colors or 6 colors, and that's it. And you're sitting there going, what's our color palette? And of course, you still want to have an understanding of the color palette, but you're committed, you're done. It's like you got your 6 colors. You want a 7th color? Oh, well, would be nice. With RGB LEDs, I've got, anything I want. And yes, they're imperfect. People are going to say, that they don't have quite the same nuance. But I think between those and a good colorist, I could get pretty much anything I want. The fact that I've got, in fact, it's this right here, this little tube. This is a Nanlite Pavo tube. Goes for 99 bucks. It's it's not as sophisticated as like an Astera Titan, but I did a teaser for a company recently where they had it was a street racer. And they wanted a scene with her racing down the street being chased by the cops. And this thing will do a cop flashlight. So I put it in the back window. I put it in that little ridge in the back window. I flicked it on with a cop light, and there you go. Because it was coming from behind, you didn't know if it was. I was shooting profile. You didn't know if it was coming from outside the car, or inside the car.
Right.
And for there's $100, I could do fire flicker with that. I could do TV flicker. So that's really changed things, because before you would need a flicker box, and you'd need a person to set up this flicker box and program with all these stupid dials and crap. And if somebody sets it wrong, it's like, we got to reset the flicker box. And you got all of these peppers or all of these midgets that are all set up on that stupid flicker box. And it's like now, and these are battery powered. When we shot the first California Christmas, we shot that bar that had all those blue lights in it. And I was originally, that was when those tubes were still relatively new. And I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna have to, and the ceiling's low. So how am I gonna get lights? I'm gonna have to put tubes. I'm gonna have to run all these cables. It's gonna take a pre-rig. Well, you don't have a pre-rig. Well, it turns out we could just zip tie these suckers up there. And I thought, oh, well, how are we gonna charge them? The batteries lasted all day.
Wow.
I mean, it was the most liberating, incredible. I was able to do things on these movies that 5-10 years ago they wouldn't be the same movies, and the fact that I can just today I shot a shot for a music video on my iPhone. I've people shoot stuff for major films they'll do a background plate on their iPhone or and you'll never know because they'll slip it in there if they shoot it correctly, if they get a good exposure, if they get a good dynamic range. You can manipulate it. You can make it look terrific. You can integrate it with footage shot on cameras costing many times more.
Yeah, technology. We haven't really touched much on that in this interview, but I'm sure that could be like a whole other series. But yeah, it has really changed the landscape. I'm a big film guy. I love, and especially in the recording world, I love analog gear, on the musician side of things. And, but the digital really has come a long way, and it's obviously made these ideas and these experiments so much more accessible, so much more on the fly, and able to be captured. And then also taking, just digital files and being able to work collaboratively internationally.
Yes, absolutely.
How could you not work in that flow when there's those tools to beef up and make things analog, visually, audibly, etc.
I'm on the road right now shooting a music video. It's kind of a road trip video. And as we go, I'm uploading footage to Dropbox, and the editor is in a completely different city doing the edit.
Yeah.
And I, people are like, oh, well, you need backups. It's like, I got a backup, and I'm sending this stuff up into the cloud, and the editor's downloading it, and she's rocking the cut. And as we go, we're getting updates. It's like, here's the cut, and the nice thing with that is like, oh, we're missing this. Let's pick that up.
Right.
It's not like, oh, we do the road trip, we come back, here's the footage. Oh shit, you missed some stuff.
Now we have to go back. Yeah.
So it's just I love the technology. I love the collaboration. You're talking about, the music. I was telling you earlier about Fiverr and air gigs, and I've got people who are doing string parts in Israel, and a guy who's doing writing orchestration in Russia, and somebody doing a clarinet from Italy. And it's just these amazing, talented people that you're getting for these just absolutely budget prices. I have this one young lady who will do a string quartet, will perform a string quartet for $180.
Wow.
Where are you going to get that if you're trying to do stuff in town? And that's not to say I don't use premium session players. I do, but I'm just one guy. I can't have a whole album full of premium session players. I have to have, let's highlight the premium session players, and for the background bits, let's hire these other folks or hire my friends or whatever. But the fact that it is really the guy mixing the albums in the UK, how amazing is that? I have a buddy who recently started doing audio post-production, and he lives in this small town, and he says, oh, how am I going to get jobs? And I'm like, don't worry about it. All this crap is remote. And if it wasn't before, the pandemic sure made it remote. All the Voyager the Discovery visual effects for season 3 were done by people at home.
Right.
So it's like great. And there are people with disabilities who are like, I can't commute into a job, or I can't do this or that. It's like, what? You're sitting there working remotely. Nobody will ever know. Nobody cares. It's a brilliant thing. And also, like with Fiverr, it's like, play an instrument, hang up a shingle. I'll play guitar. I'll play bass. I'll play flute. And you have access to an income and a livelihood that 5-10 years ago, it just didn't exist. Or maybe it did. I wasn't aware of it. But the point is, it's all relatively new.
It was more primitive, and then the pandemic just made everything blow to massive proportion.
But as far as I'm concerned, it's good for me and you, and it's good for those players. I've got some dude in Nigeria doing background vocals. It's like, rock on,
It forced adaptability. It really forced adaptability.
But to me, it's a win-win for all of us. And I just, people who never before could have access to these things have access both to the income stream and to the market, that these people in all these countries, regardless, you could live on Easter Island and be collaborating with stars in LA.
Right. Well, I admire the optimism, because we need more of that. I mean, this has just been a crazy 18 months. And one of the last bullet points I have here is future plans for you. And then we can also kind of tie that into the business side of it, which we just touched on, obviously technology growing and whatnot. But for you, with what you've done, I know you're an artist. I know you're always scratching for the next thing, and there's that part of us that's always unsatisfied to a certain degree. What's the next thing for Brad 5-10 years from now? What are you thinking? Where are you feeling?
I always want to work with new people. I want to work with the same people that I love and collaborate with them. I want to keep those relationships going. I always want more opportunities. For me, income is a necessary evil. I'm not chasing. It makes me super sad if that's the first thing I'm thinking about. I really want to look at like what's awesome and what's fun and what's going to be fun and meaningful to people. And things don't always have to be super significant in terms of like, you've made this message film. Sometimes those are nice, and sometimes a piece of sometimes a confection is also nice. And so I shot the first 10 minutes of Jeepers Creepers. Was thwarted doing any more of that principally because of the pandemic, but that's cool. I got my piece of that. That's coming out, I understand, in January. California Christmas 2 comes out December 16th.
Very cool.
It's called California Christmas City Lights. I've got a romantic comedy called That's a More that's coming out sometime spring or summer 2022. Talking about doing a horror film in Atlanta in January. Sean Piccinino, the director of the California Christmas films. We've worked on some other things, and he's talking about possibly a movie or two in the new year. The premises sound really exciting. The collaborators sound really exciting. So, I'm super into those ideas. I would love to do, some bigger budgets. On my wish list of films, my bucket list, I would still love to do a Western. I would love to do like a space-based sci-fi film. I love working with visual effects.
Yeah.
To me, the most fun I have with movies is taking people and taking myself to a place that doesn't exist outside my door. I mean, it's nice to do those reality-based movies, but to create a fantasy world that exists in the future, or to go into the past and do some amazing period piece. Another pet project would be a historically accurate film based in ancient Egypt. And I have a friend who's an Egyptologist named Dr. Kara Cooney. She teaches at UCLA, and interestingly, she's a fellow Houstonian. I just adore her. She's got the best spirit, and she writes these amazing books. In fact, she's got another, I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but if people will look her up, Kara, Kara Cooney, Cooney. She's got a new book coming out on Amazon. And it's about Egyptian kings. And she always ties them into modern events. She always makes them very contemporary, relative. And I would just love if we could get her as a technical advisor. I mean, what a thrill. And that's just an ephemeral idea. I alluded to some films that I'm helping develop. There were a couple of ideas that I had sort of come across. One was a real person, and one was this science fiction concept. And I tried to develop them with friends. And that was one of those things that I kind of pulled off the shelf during the pandemic. And I thought, these are just going to die on the shelf unless I revive them. And I went out to some of my mentees, and I'm like, hey, would you be into helping me do something with these? And so, both of them are moving into script form. We've got exciting things happening with those. And then the music, like I alluded to, I went back and I got all those tapes digitized, and I started adding on to them and started, the objective is to write new music, and I already started writing new stuff. And there's literally 46 tracks in that backlog that will be coming out in the new year. And then there's another 46 on a wish list that I'll be starting on, and then that clears out the closet, and I'm like, okay, now you got to do new stuff. But the funny thing is, with the new stuff, I want to do I want to do a Gregorian chant, just for the hell of it. It's like it's just so funny, and I'm like, I need a suitably pretentious title, and I've already come up with the title. The title is Supplication for Humanity. And I'll come up with some lyrics. I'll put them in Latin. I'll study the form. We'll write it. It'll be fun.
That's great. That's great. Last main bullet point before we get into closing out. Spirituality, faith, belief, manifestation, any of these things, as far as, do they strike a chord with you? Is there any main theme in your life where it's been there? And if you'd love to, share to, elaborate.
I mean, I respect that people tap into whatever reservoir is meaningful to them. And to me, those kind of abstract things in my framework are disempowering.
Okay.
I find them mystifying. I don't understand them. I don't want to surrender my power to some nebulous entity. In the times of my life that I've seen no evidence of any effect. And when I look around me, people like, oh, we're praying for this or praying for that. I'm like, take the Vegas odds. It's like, I see no evidence of that in a meaningful way that I would apply in my life. Again, I get that other people have other experiences, and I don't feel that I am objectively right. I think that my perspective is right for me. And if somebody else's perspective is right for them, as long as they, don't use that perspective to disempower and disenfranchise and diminish other people, more power to them. Rock on. That's my perspective. Now, having said that, I mean, look, sometimes serendipitous and seemingly magical things happen. I'm not prepared to ascribe anything to them other than to just appreciate how cool. Like, after my parents died, maybe some pieces came together in certain ways, and I thought, wow, if they could have pulled those strings, they would have pulled those strings. And it's a romantic notion to think that they might have. And it doesn't hurt anything to believe that, even if it's unlikely or impossible. So sure, I might think that as a flight of fancy, okay, sure. But in terms of depending on it, in terms of being in a moment of crisis and saying, I'm going to tune into some spiritual thing, it's just not there for me. It's really, to me, what that looks like is believing in the good in people. It's believing in the potential of people, because to me, everything that is spirituality and religion is generated by people, and all the good that people ascribe to it that is manifested by it is manifested by people. And bad stuff is equally manifested by faith and belief in religion, and that is also generated by people. So that's where I'm coming from. And I just, I go back to the golden rule. It's so funny to me. I don't know if I would call myself an atheist or an agnostic, and I don't really care. I don't need a label. INFJ is actually the first label I ever learned that I'm like, okay, I could get excited about this. But I just, people say, don't you miss having an element of belief? It's like, I don't care. I don't feel that anything is missing. It's just not missing for me. But, if I did have, people say, I've heard people say, it's like, well, if you don't believe in God, how can you have morality? It's like, I think that's silly. It's like, why do you need the threat of somebody judging you? Or why do you need the enticement or promise of reward to do the good, to do the right thing? I mean, it's like, do the right thing because it's the right thing. When I was a little kid, they taught us the golden rule. What, doesn't that make a whole lot of sense? It's like, treat others the way you want to be treated. You don't have to believe in anything to do that. You don't have to be threatened with eternal damnation to do that. You don't have to be enticed with 37 virgins to do that. It's like, man, just be a good person. Just put into the world. You're sitting there saying, oh, I wish people were nicer to each other. Well, do that. I can't make you or anybody else be cool to other people, but I can be cool to other people. And I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I always am, you know, but intentionally, if I'm making the choice, my choice is always going to be to try and treat other folks the way I would want to be treated. And it's very simple. And when people say, oh, you did all this nice stuff, I'm like, I don't think it's special or mystifying. I'm basically, it's the golden rule.
Yeah. What is it? It's be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I tell people that, where, you know, oftentimes when a person has a campaign or a mission where they're like, I believe in this thing, some people would try to hijack it. It's like, you know, oh, you know, you care about the, you know, the three-legged zebras, but, you know, what about the two-legged dogs? It's like, okay, you can't do everything. You do the two-legged dogs. I'll do the three-legged zebras, and you do the two. If that's important to you, don't be sitting there pointing fingers saying, hey, why aren't you doing the two-legged dogs? You do the two-legged dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. There's a thing that I like to close out with called the shootout, or the popcorn answer, whatever, question answer, which is, I'll just say a word and you just fire back a word that is the first thing that comes up to you. And they're all industry related. There's no like trick words or anything. So no right or wrong answers, just a little fun thing.
Okay.
Camera.
Lens.
Lights.
Action.
Crew.
Awesome.
Funding.
Elusive.
Yeah. Time.
Precious.
That's a good one. Marketing.
Essential.
Another good one. Fine art.
Life.
Love.
The meaning of life.
It's really good. Music.
Also life.
The master shot.
Essential for context. I know you wanted one word. Oh, context. We'll just say context.
Yeah, that works. The close-up.
Nuance.
Houston.
Home.
LA.
Home.
Home too. And then
well, they say home is where the heart is, so I guess you can have more than one, right?
Yeah. And then the last one, pizza.
Let's go. I'm ready. I don't know. It sounds good, man. Let's have that for dinner.
And then this is the last question I ask everybody who's on the show, which is, if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell him as advice?
I say buckle up and have faith. Don't stop believing. It's so funny because some of these songs that I've been working with are songs that I wrote when I was 15 and in my 20s and 30s.
Wow.
And I look at those lyrics and they're as immediate today as they were then. And that's in both good ways and bad ways. Like some of the same fears and vulnerabilities are as raw today as they were then, which is a little disappointing. I feel like I wish that I had gotten some of that under control. But by the same token, I have this one song where I'm talking about dreams and who you might want to be and taking chances. And it predicts who I am today. And I'm like, wow. All those years ago, I declared this commitment to a vision, and I've lived it. So there's some satisfaction in that.
It's always interesting when you write a song, right? 10, whatever years ago, and it's about a situation that happened. And then a situation will come a decade or longer later, and it's even more substantial and recognizable to that current situation. Yes. And relatable than the one that you actually wrote it about. It's bizarre. I've had that happen to me a couple of times.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been some tracks, man. I want to hear some of your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really so when can we expect the new music to come out on your end?
In 2022, I'm still working on how that's going to happen. I think for one thing, I'm going to try to do a lot of television and film placement with it.
Very cool.
Because I just have access to that logically. And once it's done, I'm going to send it to people who I know and trust and say, what do you think? I've had some directors who just listen to previews, or, like I said, Sean played on some of it. He's like, oh my God, I would put this in a movie. I'm like, okay. I was just doing it because it made me happy. But if there's commercial potential, why not exploit it?
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? If it fits the niche, for sure.
And I happen to know how to shoot music videos. I don't know that I should be the face of the music video. I don't know if people want to see me rocking and rolling, but we'll see. We'll figure it out. I mean, it'll be fun. It's, to me, I try to do all of this stuff for fun first, even if I'm getting a whole bunch of money. I mean, I treat every job like they're treating me like a king, no matter what the circumstances are, because at the end of the day, I choose this life, and it's a privilege anytime somebody chooses to collaborate with me. And I always cherish that, and I respect that, and I reflect that in what I give back.
Well, I got to tell you, I've done over 100 of these episodes. This is by far one of the top for me. Really, really appreciate your knowledge and your time.
Can I put that on my resume?
Hey, for what it's worth. For what it's worth. I don't know exactly what that is, but for what it's worth, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you.
This has been great. Where can folks find you that are not able to look at the description box because they're driving or wherever, when this is released after being pre-recorded?
My website is Brad Rushing, BRADRUSHING, www.bradrushing.com. I'm on Facebook under Brad Rushing. That's the social media where I'm most active. I have Instagram, which is Brad Rushing DP, because somebody else has my name. So, bless them. But I'm Brad Rushing DP, and that is principally more focused on my career and my art. So there's not as much personal observations. And, on my Facebook, I always try to be uplifting and positive and generous. I try to steer away from contentious, because it's like we all have our opinions on things, but there's enough contentious, there's enough people calling stuff out that I kind of want to make the balance. I try to do meaningful stuff, but sometimes it's fun or funny or helpful or insightful. But I love empowering people. I want to be that positive light in the world that I would like to have more of myself. I'm on LinkedIn for people who do LinkedIn. I'm on most social media, but really Facebook and Instagram are the principal ones that I'm active on.
Fantastic. Well, any last words?
Yeah, thank you. It's been super fun, and I've enjoyed it. I love, I never ever want to repeat myself in interviews, and I feel like you asked some really terrific questions that broke some fresh ground and explored some new topics. It was very meaningful for you to share with me that you're also an INFJ. That's a journey that I've just begun. I wish when I learned that, I was like, oh, I wish I had known this when I was 15, when I was 20, when I was struggling, because again, it's like people may say, well, that's just very silly. But, to somebody like me, you really hit the nail on the head that it's lonely. You feel like I'm the only one. Like, people don't share these same values and this same feeling. And why do I care so much? And why do I feel your pain so much? Like, what the hell is wrong with me? And it's just a weird and fragile and vulnerable thing. So I wish I had known, but it's like I said, I really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed meeting you. I feel like I've made a new friend. And if I've said anything of value to anybody, that I'm grateful. Often when people reach out to me on social media and they say, thank you, I say, it's a privilege to contribute to you. And it is. I mean, why else are we here? So, let's do that. And if you feel I've contributed to you, please pay it forward.
It's great. Well, you guys have been watching and listening to the Jason Damico show. Definitely check out Brad's material. If you haven't already seen it already, because you probably have at some length or another without even realizing it with what he's done over the years. And be on the lookout for more of his content. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you, Jason. Be good.